but we're heading off to look at something a little different today. This is the Orange Empire Museum, and specifically we are looking at the Ward Kimball collection at the Orange Empire Museum. Ward Kimball was one of the old 9 Disney animators, as they called these guys, the old original animators, and he was the creator of Jiminy Cricket, which he's really well known for. But he worked there on all these animated films for decades, and just a really fun and interesting guy, and a true aficionado of steam railroading. And Walt Disney was also a big fan of steam-powered everything, especially steam-powered trains. And the two of them used to play steam trains together. And Walt had a 7.5-inch gauge railroad that he had built, and he would run that sometimes around the studio and sometimes around his home. And Ward Kimball started buying up equipment, but Ward Kimball wasn't so much into the little 7.5-inch gauge miniature railroads. He was more into buying the real thing. And he had a nice big piece of land, so he could get away with that. So he started buying up narrow gauge locomotives, and he built his own little railroad there that he called the Grizzly Flats Railroad. And he had the Grizzly Flats Depot, and then he also had a full-size Santa Fe depot on the property that he kept his model trains inside and so on. Well, Ward is no longer with us. He passed away a few years ago, and he donated that whole collection to the Orange Empire Museum, and they've been moving it over there and setting it back up. A small amount of it has gone to John Lasseter, who's the new head of Disney, who's building his own 3-foot gauge railroad on his property. And he has taken the Grizzly Flats Depot up to be part of his railroad. But for the most part, the rest of the Ward Kimball collection has ended up at the Orange County Museum, which is in Paris, California, not Paris, France, and a very hot and dusty, dry place out in the desert. But nevertheless, a really, really interesting museum, and now even more interesting because they have the Ward Kimball collection. Now, if you haven't seen the last 2 Toyman episodes on the creation of Disneyland and the involvement of Ward Kimball in that, then you really need to watch those 2 episodes. While Disneyland was definitely the brainchild of Walt Disney, Ward Kimball was certainly a large influence on it. Ward Kimball had built his own 3-foot gauge railroad on his property, the Grizzly Flats Railroad. This was his first locomotive, a 260, started off looking a little rough, but he soon had it whipped into shape, and he had a lovely passenger car to go along with it. Later on, a friend of his, rail historian Gerald Best, acquired 2 plantation engines. One of them Ward turned into this engine, which he called the Chloe. Really cute little engine. And the other one they also rebuilt for Gerald Best. You can see it here on the right. Fortunately, Ward's wife Betty was not only tolerant of all this nonsense, she actually helped support it and even bought one of the locomotives. Who says playing with trains is strictly a male endeavor? Girls can mess around with these toys too. Ward had a really cool little train station on the line. The Grizzly Flats Depot was actually a movie set from a Disney film, and Ward talked Walt into letting him take it home and use it as a train station on the line. Disney liked it so much he built the exact same depot at Frontierland at Disneyland. You can see it here, the Frontierland station. Later on, that was changed to the New Orleans Square Depot. Ward had a rather unique sense of humor, and he built this gadget, which he called the Iron Man, and he told people it was a steam-powered robot capable of pulling this cart. He would insist it was fully functional, just temporarily out of commission. Before his death, Ward donated his entire collection to the Orange Empire Museum in Paris. Here we see the Chloe. Ward kept the Chloe on his property until after his death, and then it was moved here to Paris. It's an amazing, attractive little engine, a wonderful adaptation of the original plantation engine. Everybody really seems to love the Chloe. Ward also designed and built these little open-air excursion cars to pull with the Chloe so that he could give people rides on the railroad. Ward's first engine was this 260 or mogul configuration engine, which he called the Emma Nevada. Clearly, Ward Kimball liked 19th century locomotives, in fact, kind of middle to later 19th century locomotives. They look like they escaped from about, 1870 or 1880. I have to confess a certain love for this era of locomotive myself. The fine paint jobs and polished brass. It's just hard not to see the beauty in these things. Clearly, Ward Kimball had perfected the high art of screwing around. Sort of hard to keep in mind that all of this was part of a backyard railroad. A backyard railroad which included a large water tank and a giant windmill to fill the water tank, and a train station, 2 steam locomotives. I'd say that definitely takes screwing around to just about the highest level you can take it to. Oh, and let's not forget about that coach. Yet again, a 19th century, a beautiful, beautiful passenger car with velour seats and kerosene lighting. The Orange Empire Museum is attempting some major repairs to the coach. The wood looks as though it's been burned, but in reality it's just the varnish. Natural varnish is an organic compound, and it's subject to some really strange problems. And this is blistered and kind of melted, but the wood is actually sound. Here you can see a door that's been refinished, and you can see just how clean the wood really is. Well, there it is, the Orange Empire Museum at Paris, California, and the Ward Kimball collection there. The museum itself is a full-on train museum with a lot of other things in the collection. They originally started off as a trolley museum, and they have a ton of really interesting trolleys there. And I think we need to revisit that in the future and take a look at some of these great trolleys that they have, that they operate on the weekends and so on there. They're about to connect that museum with the light rail system in Los Angeles, so you'll be able to get out there, because it is out there. It's a long way out. And this way you can just climb on the light rail system and head out to Paris, change from the light rail to one of their trolleys and ride one of their trolleys all the way to the museum, and then see the whole museum that way. So that's going to be really fun and exciting, and that should be opening up here in 6 months or so. It's nearing completion as we speak. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Do subscribe to the channel on YouTube and share that link with your friends. Look for the movies on Vimeo and like me on Facebook, and get your friends to like me on Facebook. Not sure how you found this particular movie on the internet, but I hope you didn't find it boring, and I'll see you here again in a week.